It's up to you, New York, New York.
How we doing, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. I am your host, Richie, riding solo this morning, and here to talk about yesterday's first day of the NBA playoffs. As you can see, I'm getting a little nostalgic and feeling a little festive as my New York Knickerbockers took the floor at MSG for game one. And this here is an iconic photo of New York Knicks legend John Starks dunking over Horace Grant with Michael Jordan in the picture. Something that I always gave John Starks credit for is that he would always say that he technically didn't jump over Mike and dunk on him. Mike tried to come in for some late defensive help on this play, but still nonetheless a phenomenal picture for a phenomenal Knicks victory, ultimately with the assistance of Mike Lupica and others in the media rattling the cage of the great Michael Jordan. The Knicks 2-0 lead ultimately turned into a 4-2 defeat as the Chicago Bulls did go on that year to face league MVP Charles Barkley and the Phoenix Suns, and they did win their third consecutive NBA title. In my lifetime, that was the first repeat I ever witnessed. The Bulls were able to do it again with a slightly different cast a couple of seasons later, and most recently, the Lakers, led by Shaq and Kobe, did it. But the NBA playoffs, particularly anything going down in Madison Square Garden, always seems to bring out the best of the biggest ballers. Yesterday, New York Knicks go on a 21-0 run in the fourth quarter to defeat the Detroit Pistons. And I must say it was necessary because the Pistons definitely left some opportunities out there. Jalen Brunson did not shoot the ball particularly well, but I believe that a concern amongst Knicks fans is going to be the health of his foot, as he was seen limping during the game, having a little more trouble getting back properly on defense. All you could hope at this time of the year is just that the Knicks give him the proper amount of treatment. But I got to give Detroit some credit. Former Knick Alec Burks definitely contribute. Tobias Harris was definitely playing well. Pistons got a very scrappy team, and they did out-rebound the Knicks by 8, definitely getting the better of them on the offensive glass. I think the ultimate difference, like I said, was that 21-0 run. But the Knicks are going to have to play a lot cleaner in game two. This is the kind of series that is a strange one. It could be a 4-0 sweep. It could be Knicks in 5. But if the Knicks don't take care of business, this is also the kind of series that could go 6 or 7 games and be very scary. But I'll take it. A necessary win. Uh, no surprise to anyone, the Knicks home crowd was completely intense, just making it a great atmosphere to watch the game on the tube. Even better if you're fortunate enough to be in the arena. But the New York Knicks are up 1-0. I think a surprise yesterday was how flat the Milwaukee Bucks came out against the Indiana Pacers. I expect the Bucks to win this series. It's only one game in, Bucks obviously are going to have to win at least once on Indy's home floor. And as I say this ever so sarcastically, one of our favorites here at the show, Tyrese Halliburton, getting into it with multiple Bucks players. These are division rivals, and this is going to boil into a very intense series. I expect Giannis to rally his guys and to play much better in game two. Game of the day, undeniably, Denver Nuggets and the Los Angeles Clippers. Just a phenomenal game. A lot of excitement. It went to OT. James Harden definitely throwing it back a couple of years as he was making some big time shots. Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, who was possibly the best overall player in today's NBA. Just a little too much for the Clippers in game one. That is a series that has the makings of a true classic and could go seven. Um, Los Angeles Lakers coming out really flat at home against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I must say that I am happy for Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo, who are recently former Knicks, as they were traded in this year's offseason to acquire Karl Anthony Towns. We shall see if the Lakers are able to respond well in game two. And of course, they're going to have to win on Minnesota's home floor now. Definitely some extracurricular activities as Anthony Edwards was mixing it up with some Lakers. Very physical. This is going to be that kind of series, I could already tell. But a huge victory for the T Wolves. And Anthony Edwards gets a small measure of revenge, as now Luka Doncic is, of course, a member of the Lakers going back to last year's Western Conference Finals. The T Wolves lost to the Mavericks. Today's NBA slate should be interesting. The game that I will most have my eyes on is the Orlando Magic traveling to Boston to take on the Celtics. Me, as many other Knicks fans, will be rooting hard for Orlando to win the series, but we will be happy if Orlando could at least steal a couple of games because the New York Knicks have not been able to play the Boston Celtics well this year. Most recently, it was a winnable game, but that's not a team the Knicks necessarily want to face. The one-seeded Cavaliers in the East will be taking on the Miami Heat. I'm sure many of us wish it was the other way around where Miami was playing the Celtics. Miami has a very deep and rich history in recent playoffs with that team. So it would be interesting to see if indeed the Miami Heat would have been able to compete with the Celtics on that level, because in recent history, they have really been that good in terms of matching up with them. And head coach Eric Spoelstra is a huge reason why. But, nothing too surprising yesterday with the Knicks in terms of the way that the coach Tom Thibodeau was using their bench. Still very short. 9 guys played yesterday, and that was it. Just 9 guys. I still feel that Coach Thibodeau is going to have to mix it up and play more guys as the playoffs continue to move along. It is such a grind. So I think it's imperative that the Knicks, Coach Tom Thibodeau, starts emptying out some of that bench a little more. But game one victory, game one will take. Want to flip it for a moment over to the events of WrestleMania Night 1. If you haven't seen it yet and care to see it, maybe jump off of here right now because this is a bit of a spoiler. Shouts out Jey Uso with the big victory over Gunther. I did not expect Jey Uso to win. I thought they were going to add a little more to the storyline, similar to how they did with Cody finally overcoming the tribal chief Roman Reigns at last year's WrestleMania. But a feel-good moment for a guy who has really elevated his game in professional wrestling over the last year and a half, as he was predominantly a tag team legend with his brother Jimmy. But Jey Uso is the new world champion, so happy for him. Charlotte Flair put on a great performance yesterday, but came up short in the women's championship. And I must say that I think at this juncture of Charlotte's career, it's imperative that she kind of passes the torch along. Tiffany Stratton just put on a great performance. It was a hell of a match. The athleticism from Tiffany Stratton is a far cry from what we saw years ago in the women's division. The women's division is so good right now that they really could carry any and all shows, any and all cards. And I'm sure some of the pioneers are very pleased with that. Shout out to Michelle McCool, the wife of The Undertaker, the first woman to hold the Divas and Women's Championship at the same time. She was enshrined into the WWE Hall of Fame along with the headliner, Triple H, The Game. Shouts out to the natural disasters. The late earthquake would be so very happy to see the way that his family was proud and the way that they were received. And a Legends moment, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Bret the Hitman Hart. Good to see them back at WrestleMania. They were honored for their phenomenal match way, way back at a previous WrestleMania. The iconic shot of Bret Hart putting Austin in the sharpshooter, a bloody Steve Austin. Definitely a different era of wrestling, but one of the most iconic moments in the history of WrestleMania. That was towards the last year and a half of Bret's WWE run. We all know that the Montreal Screwjob and Vince McMahon's inability to pay him that huge contract led him to WCW. Jacob Fatu, another member of The Rock's very, very talented family, getting the dub. But I would have to say that the big surprise of night one was the wise man Paul Heyman not only turning on his man CM Punk, but also turning on his previous man Roman Reigns. It was played off very well as Seth Rollins now aligns himself with Paul Heyman and he wins the triple threat match that's going to lead to a lot of interesting storylines post WrestleMania. And of course, Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns have the huge history going back to their days in the Shield. Goes without saying that the story of tonight is John Cena, the new heel, going up against company man Cody Rhodes. I personally believe that Cody will be dropping the belt tonight. This is Cena's final run. What's at stake? Breaking the record of the great Ric Flair. I don't think we'll see Ric Flair in the building. It would really be dope to see him, but at his age, he doesn't really have any dexterity anymore. But I never put anything past the Nature Boy if he was to show up and put a dent into John Cena's championship aspirations. But no, I think John Cena is primed for this final title run. And perhaps later in the year, maybe at SummerSlam, Cody wins it back. Cody has been a really good champion for a year. I think it's really special when you consider where Cody came from and how he had to basically leave the company to come back and build up that steam. Of course, being the brother of the legendary Gold Dust, Dustin Rhodes, and of course, being the son of the legendary Dusty Rhodes. A lot of pressure to perform and to be a certain way with your character. And Cody definitely took the long road. But win or lose, Cody has represented the company in a very great way. And win or lose, I think he's still going to be a huge part of the immediate plans for the future. You know, Roman Reigns, the multiple time cancer survivor, as champion, was quite the part timer because of a lot of things that he had to deal with from the health standpoint. Cody's been similar to Cena, there every day when Cena was the champ. So it will be interesting. You know, of course, John Cena and the way that the storyline rolls is that he wants to leave the company with the belt. Similarly to how Bret Hart was Vince McMahon's biggest fear back in '97 that he could have left the company with the belt. But I believe that you are going to see John Cena walk away with the title. And I think it's interesting how he is a heel now. I think it's wise that they didn't go back to the Thugonomics, the rapper um, character, because I think people would have liked Cena a little too much. And I think the whole thing they're trying to do is to make sure that Cena is hated, insulting the fans, making the fans feel that he's basically not the guy that he was. And, you know, wrestling fans, one thing about wrestling fans is that even though they know this is a show, they are very emotionally invested, as was I when I was a young wrestling fan. But I expect big things for WrestleMania Night 2. I'm looking forward to the triple threat match between Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, Io Sky. My prediction is Io Sky will be walking away with the win. And I like that the underdog is getting that kind of push in the women's division. It's going to be a great, great show. Moving it along, my New York Yankees, a very, very disappointing loss yesterday to the Tampa Bay Rays, busting up what could have been a 6-game winning streak. The Yankees have won 2 of the first 3. Tampa could square up the series, or the Yankees could win 3 out of 4. More so than losing the game, I think the thing that's upsetting to the Yankee fans, myself included, is that the big addition, the big trade acquisition of Devin Williams, previously of the Milwaukee Brewers. He has been just so shaky in that ninth inning role. Jeff Weaver, Jared Weaver on the other hand, has been awesome. And the Yankees are going to have to really consider putting Williams down into less leverage situations until he rectifies what's wrong. I know that it's been well documented that in the beginning of the season, possibly even going back to the Mets series when he gave up that big home run to Pete Alonso, that he has been tipping his pitches. But the mechanics are not right. I question if he is not 100% healthy. I'll be honest. But, you know, manager Aaron Boone has to really consider what the value is of keeping him in the ninth inning until he gets right, because, blowing a 4-run lead is just unacceptable when you only need 3 outs to get the W. And especially when your 8th inning man, Weaver, has just been so good, it's frustrating. Yankees squander an opportunity to keep that winning streak going, but hopefully today they get back on track. I must say, it's interesting to see the slow start from Juan Soto. Of course, things are always going to get blown out of proportion on any level in the New York media. But I am curious to see that if Juan Soto, 80 games, 100 games into the season, doesn't have the proper productivity, if Met fans are going to really turn on him. On WFAN, a lot of Met fans call in with a lot of frustrations. Ultimately, the only thing that matters is winning. I remember when Roger Clemens started with the Yankees traded a very popular fan favorite in David Wells. Clemens did not have the best year one. Ultimately, he had a hell of a Yankee career after that. But, Juan Soto's a great player, particularly on the offensive end. But, it's a different situation. And of course, those comments, which I alluded to on my most recent show with Idris and Zappi, the comments about not hitting in front of Judge anymore, I don't think you're doing any favors for the organization or the locker room or making any friends, so to speak, when you're, even if it's unintentional, slighting a perennial all-star in Pete Alonso. But, a lot of tabloid stories for the 2 New York teams. And it's going to be fun as the summer heats up, as baseball heats up, when you get that Subway Series. A lot of storylines. I credit Yankee captain Aaron Judge for not getting too mixed up in all this, because any sports writer would want Aaron Judge to reply and give them anything to work with, but Judge has been consistent, having the ability to always say the right things. And that's important, because you don't want to get mixed into all this. And now you're talking about stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with your team or nothing to do with baseball. NFL draft coming up soon. I am so very excited. Which way are the New York Giants going to go? I know that some people are a little concerned about Abdul Carter's previous injury history. I still think generationally he is a supreme talent. If he should be at 3, you cannot bypass him. I also feel that Travis Hunter, especially the fact that he gives you the value of playing both sides of the football, both sides of the ball, defense, shutdown corner, offensive weapon, he and Malik Neighbors together could be something to behold. Giants obviously still have to figure out franchise quarterback. And will they trade back into round 1 if they bypass Shador and go after a Jackson Dart or a Jalen Milroe? It's going to be very interesting to see what the New York Football Giants look to do. I suspect that there could be a trade back as well. I've said it on a previous Instagram video that if the Giants want Shador, it's not so much as a fan or as a football person that I'm worried about getting Shador. It's more that I don't want him at 3. I want to get the value. I want to get more picks. But get at me in the comments, guys. Let me know what you think about all of this. Before I get out of here, I want to wish everybody happy Easter, happy Passover. Enjoy your families today. Unfortunately, my girl is somewhat under the weather, so I'm going to be taking our son to see his grandparents today. um, really fun getting to see my man Idris Salam here in Florida. I was really happy to do a show with him here at the house, and just having him in town was really cool. He should be visiting Florida again within the month. But enjoy today's NBA playoffs. Enjoy today's baseball. Enjoy your families today. If you haven't already, definitely check out the VMix on live365.com, where Idris Salam takes you on quite the ride with your ears. You hang around, you'll also hear some of our promos, which usually appear at the last 5 minutes or so of every hour. Check out the Basement Show with Johnny Nast and his crew. They're doing a hell of a great job over there. Every Wednesday night, make it a point to check out the Casual Convo Show from 8 to 10, where you see Idris and the beautiful Miss Coco. Also, make it a point to check out Steve Azul and his team for the Bleed Blue podcast. Those guys cover everything from the Rangers, the Knicks, the Yanks, and of course the New York Football Giants. Always looking to give some love to fellow podcasters. But I am really stoked about this NFL draft. We're going to be figuring out the best way to go about delivering a mock draft in the next day or two, as it's coming up soon, and something that we are very much looking forward to here on the panel. So I'm gonna get with Brett, Zappy, the crew, and figure out what works best for everybody. But we're gonna make sure that we give you guys a show worth watching. Until next time, I am Richie. Enjoy your day.